Good morning.
Good morning, Charito. Good morning, Leslie. Nice to see you all.
Morning, Leslie.
Good morning, Sharito.
Nice to
Hello,
see you,
you.
Nupur, again, and Dr. Ash. We will
Dr.
start,
Ash.
I think, in few seconds. As you can see, I'm not in my office. I'm in a factory of my client, but we agree that I will keep the regular session. So I'm happy you are here. And let me start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next Industry 5.0 Power of Touch, in which together with the members of my global family from all around the globe, we will write on the back of language to discover what was not discovered before. And we will talk about one term, and the term today is policy. So not politics itself, but policy. And because I see here Charito first on my screen, Charito, if you hear the term policy for the first time as a topic, what came to your mind first, please?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Ash, Leslie, Tracy, Nupur, and Michael. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we
It's
can hear you well.
it's raining here. Always raining in the Philippines. Actually, for me, when I look at the word policy, it's something like a guideline. It's more on a systematic guide to what is supposed to be done in a certain, like an individual, a company, or where you want to have a rational a result, which is or outcome which is rational, and the decisions will be guided because of this. So policies are in place guidelines, deliberated by those who made these policies and put it into action. That's policy for me. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Charito. Nupur, we have met yesterday during one meeting, and today we meet again. So, what is policy for you?
To me, policy is the same as I talked about. It is the guiding star that someone has worked, framed, wished, and strategized, and finally given it a printed shape, which guides that how certain applicable terms and conditions shall work. It involves a huge research work. It involves huge learning and understanding. But finally, if I hear the policy, then I only understand somebody else has worked for me and given me some guiding principles to follow and accomplish a task.
Thank you very much for that. Uh, Leslie, I feel that there will be probably something different when you will speak about policy. So, what was on your mind first?
Good morning, everyone. It will be different because for me, when I thought of policy, policy for me is boundaries and agreements. So for many, many years, I see the word policy as an agreement to adhere to it. If you join a company that has a certain policy, you basically surrender or agree that you will comply. I see it as more than a guideline, but as a matter of personal integrity to follow that policy. For years and years, I've done masterminds, and there is a set of agreements before a person joins. And one of those things is that you do agree. And if you don't agree, you don't have to be part of it. Now, of course, they're all realistic, they're not crazy. But one of the things also is when you say you'll be there, you will be there, which teaches people to keep their word and not to give their word so freely. So, policy in this sense, agreement, boundaries, are it can be a very good thing in terms of people who are inconsistent with their word or wishes to be better at keeping their word and not giving it so freely. One of the agreements is that if at any time this no longer serves you and you prefer not to be here, you can step away at any time. So you're coming in freely. You agree that we're all on the same page doing the same things. We will meet at the same time every week, or if there's an emergency, we will be in communication. And with those kinds of agreements, you have people really free to express themselves. And if they don't want to be there anymore, which sometimes happens, they can step away without feeling guilty or that they violated a policy. So I see them more than guidance. I see them as an agreement, and I will either follow the policy or I will not engage unless I'm in it. And of course, we want to make a change to the policy. Back to you, Michael, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Tracy, what came to your mind when you hear the term or see the term policy?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Michael. Policy, I'm going to give you a very comprehensive understanding from myself. Policy, to me, are the rules, guidelines, and including some code of conduct imposed by a business entity or non-for-profit organizations when they need control or manage a workforce or a situation or the overall operation. Why they do it? Because I guess it's for the ease of management and to impose control. And often I see it in the real world, in reality, as an excuse and or as a compromise. And that's my one long sentence definition of policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ash, of course, education and policy and peace and policy. These are your own field. So what came to your mind first when you hear the term?
Thank you, Michael, and a big hello to everyone here. Let me begin with the word chosen by you, Michael, and a word that we often overlook, policy. The word policy, to me, having been in the military, in the corporate world, and as a professor at various world-recognized universities, I'll bring about a change. I agree completely with what Leslie and the others have said also, but it gives a different meaning to me because I associate this word policy with the word leadership. And so, having said that, the word policy is a course or a principle of action adopted or proposed by an organization or an individual. Not strategy, not charisma, not inspiration, but policy. This word actually revolves around leadership because leadership anywhere and everywhere without policy is nothing but noise, loud, impressive perhaps, but utterly hollow. A leader may move crowds, but without policy, they cannot move systems or be successful. Policy is what transforms vision into action, ideals into structure, and momentum into measurable results. Policy is discipline in a written form, as Leslie had mentioned. It is the commitment that outlives speeches, outlasts tenures, and outperforms promises. A leader may inspire with words, but a great leader builds with a policy. That is why the world of politics and leadership is in a mess these days, sadly, because most leaders have no policy in hand to run either organizations, institutions, or even countries. Show me a great leader, and I will show you the policies that made their leadership last. Leadership must revolve around policy because leadership is not about popularity, it's about accountability. It's not about taking credit, but about taking responsibility for one's actions. And policy is the document of that responsibility. It says, this is where we stand. This is how we act. This is who we are. In times of a crisis, like in today's world, policy is the compass. In times of change, policy is the anchor. And in times of doubt, policy is the proof. Without it, leadership becomes nothing. With it, leadership becomes an institution. So I say this to every one of you. All of you all are leaders of a kind, both current and future. Don't just lead with your heart, lead with policy. It's a lovely word that Michael has conjured up for us today. So when you write and when you speak, speak with what you define as the rules before the game gets tough. Because policy doesn't just guide others, it holds you to a standard. And that is the true test of leadership. The world doesn't need more leaders who promise. It needs leaders who codify, commit, and deliver. And that begins with that beautiful word, policy. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ash, and thank you to all. Usually when I choose a new term, I go to Google Translate and try to translate it into Czech language. And today's word policy was very interesting because it delivered 5 different meanings. First was the politics, but the second was insurance. The next one was administration or rule. Next one was cleverness. And the last one was prudence or precaution. It was very interesting because I will use just one of these sentences maybe in the connection, but not the others. So I was fascinated by this translation, but I'm more fascinated by what you said right now together. And going to Charito for the second round of questions. Charito, do you think that let's speak all the time for your country or your region, do you think that currently, or do you have the feeling that currently there are more policies or more promises than policies? When I take
Wow.
Dr. Ash.
So are you asking me now,
Yes.
Michael?
Yes, I'm asking you, Charito.
That's a very vague question, in my country, whether there are more policies than promises.
Yes.
Yeah. First, I would like to go back to the root word of policies for me. You see, policies are in place guidelines. So in the government, we're talking about my government right now. I'm not into politics, but this is what I see. If every rule of law and every policies are in place and follow, then they won't just be, you cannot equate that with promises because when that those are policies they have to follow. When you say policies, they are like policies of the Supreme Court, policies of the executive, legislative, and there are 3 bodies in the government. But when you say promises, these promises are for me, are individual in nature. The individual politicians. And since we're talking about government, we're talking about politics. And every 3 years or every 6 years now, we voted for a new president. So he has his own policies in place over and above those policies which were there from the longest time, right? Which just can't be easily, just changed. Now, promises, we say promises. Well, who am I to judge? I live here in the far south of the Philippines. So promises are to be made for the entire country, Philippines. So when my government says, yes, I think there are promises that are being followed or being, they are realized. And there are promises that I think they are in the making. And there are promises nowadays that still left hanging. So when you say whether there are policies or promises, which one is more than the other? I cannot say policy or promises, but you see, the policies are in place. The promises are in place in their own right. But promises are made to be broken, right, Michael? So when the government and the politicians, the people there, they can make promises and they can break it. But the policies are already there because they're guidelines. So no, you just don't break or make it. So you get my point, Michael?
Yes,
So
yes.
I mean, in this regard, we cannot make that as a comparison if there are more policies than promises, because every generation, every politics, every year, every election that we have, each one have their own new promises. But we have policies that are in place with promises or without promises. Those are in place. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Arito. It was very interesting answer. And Nupur, what do you think is more important? Endurance? No, no, no. Let me ask differently. Uh, what is the role of endurance in policy or for policy?
It it is supposed to be meant for each other, though it's not.
Uh-huh.
Uh, if the policies are abide by, then we can expect a peaceful, greener, uh, human-friendly world. Having said that, it's not. Country boundaries are set, countries are fighting to extend the boundaries or engulf each other. And that is also a policy that they agree between them and they violate. So, Charita talked about policies are meant to be violated, like that exception proves the rule.
Mm.
So, this is what comes in my mind when you talk about endurance and the policy. It is
Thank,
good to have, it always should have, but it's not must to follow for the people.
thank you very much,
It's
Nupur.
sad, but this is reality.
Mm, it is. Leslie, you pointed out the borders and the silos, and you mentioned the mastermind as well. Why do you think it's so easy to break the policies?
Well, because people in general, a very small percentage of people have the integrity and the skill to keep their word. So you could take, let's just say, PTA, Parent Teachers Association, or even a church group, a large group in a community, when they decide, let's say, to have a fundraiser. And we've all experienced this. Oh, there's all sorts of volunteers. But when it comes right down to it, there's the same small core of people, and I say small percentage, who always show up, while the other ones don't think enough of themselves. What they say to themselves is, someone else will take care of it. This happens everywhere with crowds. So until people do and do what they say they're going to do, and we're always a work in progress, nobody ever reaches a place where they always tell the truth and they always are accountable. Most people are not. most people are basically run by fear. But I wanted to say something about your question to Charito. This is the first opportunity I've had to say this, but in our country, the United States, something very interesting is happening. 250 years ago, a democracy was created in 6 months in 2025. We're now living in a dictatorship. All of the policies of the branches of government, including the Supreme Court, have thrown the policies out the window. Nothing in the courts, if it's not liked by the dictatorship, and this is true anywhere, and we all have to get used to this. And there's a huge outcry all over the world and in our country. But the reality is that the policies that have made the United States a leader in the world, when they were discarded over the last 6 months, has now dropped us to no longer the place we want to go, no longer the leader in the world. What will happen? I don't know. But that's a perfect example of all the policies that knit us together. There was good and there was bad, always are gone. The entire structure of the US government has been disintegrated from within, and the policies have no value anymore. So it's so interesting that you bring up this word, and we are all accepting this now because we have no choice. But in our country, as in many other countries, the people are protesting because the majority of them don't like what's happening, and so this is what happens. um, it's unfortunate. I never thought that I would live to see the day, honestly, because this is the most wonderful country in the world, and it's painful to watch the things that we stood with our hand on our heart and pledged allegiance, as imperfect as the world is. Ever we grew up with this, now it's all gone, and the impact now is beginning to hit each of us every day, every month, and we can only pray that somehow things on a pendulum switch back. How? It will. We just don't know when. So they will be restored, perhaps not looking exactly the same. The only thing is we do not know when that will happen. So I doubt that I'll be here to see it, but I hope for my children and your children's sake and our grandchildren's that it's done quickly. Thank you for letting me share this.
Thank you.
I must say, Leslie, it is so wonderful, so wonderful. Perhaps you speak many minds. Thank you, Leslie. It was so wonderfully drafted, so wonderfully spoken, and so very true. Thank you.
You're
Thank,
welcome.
thank you very much, Leslie and Nupur as well. Tracy, I know you are living in the US, but I know as well you have been to Japan recently. Can you, in the few days which you spent in Japan, can you feel the policies? Because Japan is a different country, very different to many others. So can you feel the different policies over there?
Thank you for the question, Michael. I can tell you personally, I have never been more embarrassed to be associated with this country for the past 4 or 5 years, because when I travel internationally, I refuse to let people know that I'm from the United States, because oftentimes I feel that's there. Sometimes the attitude toward me when they hear the name of this country is no longer something I can feel proud of. And I don't know how to explain to them, because things going on here are not really rational. It's very hard to explain. And like Leslie said, it is pretty upsetting to watch. And I already turned off the news after COVID because it just a lot of negativity, and the news are centered on negativity. And I think during COVID, I learned there are some things called one good thing. Some news agencies, I'm very grateful. They actually focus on one thing that's positive. Usually is broadcasted during weekends. That's kind of weird timing, but still, that seems to be some light, especially when I listen to the radio in the car driving my kids to school or from school. I like to turn it on. At least the kids will have something positive to look forward to. Otherwise, a 5-minute news will put us in a very sad, sad mode, and that's happening daily, every day, if not every hour. And I like to point out something really interesting that I just thought about policy, in particular about business. In this business perspective, insurance always has that most complete and most dominating and most controlling policy. And they also have this policy called life term policy. I don't know if any country can utilize that kind of script and to do their management or control. I think it will be near perfect world. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Dr. Ash, you have heard the great explanation, right? And the feelings. And my question is, in many countries, the policies has been set up a long, long time again, sometime even centuries. How do we get the policies right today when something like that happening in one of the most influential country in the world? You are meeting the world leaders. Do you see that they are trying to get the policies right?
A very good question, Michael. And I bear with everyone in the United States as to what is happening there. I've just recently returned from a tour abroad, and you'll be surprised that I've seen every country in the world virtually, except, of course, for Russia. I never like to go there. I don't know why. There's something about that country that dispels my thought process completely. But having said that, and to answer your question directly, with the feelings in mind of both Tracy and Leslie, sadly, people do not stick to what they say. People lie through their teeth. And it's politics at play all the time. Politics is a mafia by itself. Politicians, sorry. It's a they are all a mafia. And that is where things go wrong, where I meet world leaders. You'll be surprised. I meet world leaders through the backdoor methods that we have in diplomacy. And having been a leader myself, I was actually called into politics, but I refused because it's all backbiting. It's saying one thing and doing another thing. That's not policy. That's not the word that you've just talked about. And therefore, like I lead from the back, others lead from the front, but may God forgive them for the actions that they are taking right now. And you'll be surprised, all of y'all will be very surprised to know that we have a famous astrologer called Samia Khan. You can Google her name. Samia Khan has forecast a lot of things that have come true. And she's actually forecast everything that has been happening in the last 10 years or so. And she has forecast even whatever is happening in the United States right now. She has forecast even Trump coming to power. She has forecast the war in Ukraine. She has forecast, I mean, there have been many astrologers before that, but I wouldn't like to make it too long, and therefore I'd like to cut this short, especially for your benefit, Michael. That I have an event tomorrow, and I hope all of you all attend it, because we're all going to say something very important. And therefore, I would like to say that world leaders are not leaders. The leaders that we have today, unfortunately, are thieves. And I say that without any misgiving as such. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ash. It's a very, very deep conversation today, and we have 9 minutes left. Charito, if you take it from your perspective, do you think that policy and logic are on the same boat?
Hello.
Come again?
Whether the policy and logic are in the same boat?
Oh, policy and logic. When one makes policies, because policies are present not only in one person. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Policies are present not only in individuals, it is present in government, in schools, in companies, everywhere. Uh, it's a guide for me. It's a guideline. Okay, so it is present in any organization. So when these people come together to make policies for the group, for that particular group, like the school or government, when they take those policies, of course they put logic there, right? I mean, how could you make a policy which is illogical? It's like, you're putting uh, the horse before the cart. So that's why, for me, if policies are in place by any other organizations or anybody, then that is logical by itself. Now, in the long run, in the application of those logics, of those policies, then the times, the wilds of the times may change it into illogical. Am I clear, Michael?
Yes, yes, yes.
So, at one point in time, in the making of those policies, I believe they are logical. But in the long run, some may not be logical anymore. Like the policy of the school. First, they made a policy that all students must wear shoes and socks when you go to school. Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So Wednesday should be, you use just anything. But in the long run, especially when more and more students are coming in, they're you looking at universities or schools in my country, you don't need to have to wear shoes anymore. Like before, when they made that logical policy, there were only few enrollees. And now how would you control that? Not everybody can afford it anymore. So for me, they come together at one time, at one point, or it may change along the way. So when you say the question is whether they come together. Sometimes they shy away from each other. But then again, when that policies are being illogical at the present time, I think the current people who are running or are the ones making, who are responsible of their policies, will try to make it logical again. That's how I look at it. You adjust. This is an adjustment because logic, even in government, I would like to say something to the Leslie and Kathy, and you said of what's happening in your country. You know what? If you ask me, there's only one person to blame. So if those things happen and make the country go, I mean, somewhere, go to the dust, then pull that out. Easy for me, easy for me to say, but only my side remark. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Charito. And you are right. The policies are overrun by others. They are misused. They are usually from my perspective of my work of the last 13 years, they are not in favor of all, they are usually turning into favor of few, making it into profit. When in Czech we say all the time, every carpenter leave a hole in the wall, and we mean that. For example, in the law, there is all the time is something written in a way which completely change the meaning at the end. And it is so interesting to talk about a policy today. I did not mean at the time, of course, I follow the US politics and the development globally, but it is so strange that we let few change the lives of all with just this own interest. So I think a policy today is more connected to interests of few than anything else. I just before we started, I was working on the newsletter, and I found out a very interesting news about a new data center in the US in Wyoming. And the news said the new data center in Wyoming will consume 5 times more electric power than all people living in Wyoming. And there is no mention of water because the data centers has to be cooled. So I expect that the cooling will maybe consume same amount of water as all the people in Wyoming. And that's alarming. That's really alarming what is happening. And I do believe that our talks and our conversation every week, which we lead for almost 3 years, it will be just 2 more, I think, and we will be on 3 years, that all of them will help to find the new policies. And that will be the question for you, Tracy. Do you think that ordinary people can change the policy?
Yes, Michael. I don't believe individuals can change the policy. However, many individuals can push through a policy if that's the consensus eventually. One individual is powerless. Many is powerful. Thank you, Michael.
Tracy, before we finish, almost every time you give us one of Chinese wisdom. Do you have any for the policy?
Yes, I do. I actually have this saying from 200, I think 300 before Christ. It's pretty old, but this policy, this word actually from a governor who came out to be a business person first, but he was very successful in running a country similar to our current president, but he's very modest and very well educated at his time. So he said one simple word. The number one thing in policy is consistency. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and thank you all for being with me, writing on the back of a language. And I do believe everybody who will listen will understand what policy is, and everybody will understand what is our role. So I'm looking forward to meet you next week again. Wish you have a nice time free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, be free, be human, and be consistent in the policy of yours. Thank you and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you and see you all tomorrow.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
Julia.
Bye.
Bye,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.